So it's nice to come out, have a good performance, and get the trolls off our back for at least a week.
Speaking of those four on the wall there, whether a Monday night win over the Lions is a dose of troll off, and what the Mannings were talking about the Patriots bugging locker rooms, what was that about? Let's go. He said only talks to his receivers in the shower. Makes you go. Aaron Rodgers, 22 of 27, 255 yards, 4 touchdowns in the week after the week 1 dud. He said it gets the trolls off the back. Speaking of some of the people we have on backs and off backs on this program, analysis after week 1 is for overreactors. Analysis after week 2 is for the steady seers, which is why I turned to Tim Kalishaw here, around the horn to you. How would you describe the statement Aaron Rodgers made last night?
If that was a statement, Tony, it was a whisper. Wasn't much of a statement.
Okay.
You don't lose to the Saints 38-3 and then be behind the Lions at home 17-14 at halftime and come away with that game after the Lions give you a couple of great gifts. Terrible 4th and 1 throw by Goff, and then a fumble by Goff, and make it easy for you, and call that a statement. The Packers look like the Packers. They look pretty good. They got a long way to go on defense. First 12 possessions this season, they gave up 9 touchdowns and field goals. That's a lot of touchdowns and field goals no matter who you're playing. Rodgers looked fine. Some great 1-yard touchdown passes early to pad those stats. But,
wow.
Is he really going after the trolls, or is he really part of that whole process anyway?
I'm not. I would never call anyone, a troll, gnome, an ogre under a bridge. I don't know what Kalishaw is there. Clinton Yates, last night, what did you see from Rodgers? What did you see from Green Bay?
Hunchbacks, very underrated in that conference, by the way, Tony. But what I saw from Rodgers was a guy who capitalizes on another team's mistakes, as Tim said. The Lions were giving them all sorts of penalties in the secondary. Sure, they managed to get up and run away with it late, but it wasn't as if they looked like some stunning team. Again, the Packers are still 1-1 and minus 17 in point differential at the top of their division, which is the same as the 1-1 Bears. It is not like they're blowing people away. So I don't really understand why he's talking as if this was some huge correct. They're a team that's going to need to take advantage of other teams' mistakes in order to win games. They did it this time. That's what Rodgers does best. And right now, they're 500. That's enough for me.
All right, 4 touchdown games don't drop from the sky. I look to somebody in Washington now who hasn't seen many of those. Monica McNutt, what did you see from Rodgers last night and the Packers?
I think he continued the statement in terms of relaxing, and last week was just one game. I think this is a team that's steady, and it's an organization that we only really talk about when they're bad. Sure, Tim, you mentioned some of their defense not having the prowess that maybe we're accustomed to, but they're down one of their better pass rushers. I think this is week 2. Everybody, RELAX.
Okay, and Sarah Spain, how about you?
Well, the statement sounded familiar because I say it to myself in my head every time I win this show. Just, get him off my back for one more week. But honestly, he just, as Tim said, contributes to that whole cycle, right? I understand the frustration about how much people are ready to pounce every time anything seems to be going wrong with the team, that he has, for the most part, led to great success. You saw the numbers. When they lose a game, they don't lose again the next game. They are consistently great, which is why people react so much when they have such a terrible outing as they did last week. But then he plays along and feeds into it and just keeps it going. It's only week 2, which can be both a good thing for this team, and unless they figure out their defense, it might be a bad thing if we see them go against teams that are much tougher than the Lions and not come out looking quite so sparky.
Tim, is Aaron Rodgers the poker or the pokey here?
Well, he's trying to be the poker, but I think he has been the other. And anybody who spends a lot of time on social media knows you're just lumping everybody in, and then you're calling that the media. And which is, ridiculous, but it's what we have.
And Monica.
Kalishaw, are you offended by our occupational hazard of being people that talk about professional
Monica.
athletes?
Oh, whoa, it's me. Poor Cal.
This is great, guys. I know our initial reaction is, here goes this guy again, but lean into it. Rodgers, more than maybe any other quarterback that's as successful and in his class, is
That's not
keenly aware of his entire
Oh.
being. Let him be a poker or pokey or whoever he wants to be at the podium. It's
Lead
great.
into it. Did you see Kalishaw's face, Monica, while you were getting all the points in the fire? He goes, "That's not fire." No, it's not fire. All right,
It's not an
cheese.
occupational hazard.
Here, I'll
that
make you a
makes my
cheese
point
head.
for me. It's not an occupation. Bring me the cheese. Give me some cheese.
Two things from the Manning cast last night. Peyton and Eli's joke about the Patriots bugging locker rooms, so he always talked to his receivers in the shower. I want to get your take on that, but maybe first we'll start with Gronk. Because when he was on, he said he never watches film. He just runs by guys. And then the last time, who's covering me? What's the formation here? Clinton, do you believe Gronk never watches film?
Yeah, I believe him. He said later in that statement that he watched it when the team watched it, but as for him at home alone in the in the bunker like Jaws used to be, no way. When you got a guy like Tom Brady and you've got a coach like Bill Belichick, all they have to do is tell you literally play to play, who to block, where to run, and then guess what? You're going to jump up over somebody and catch the football. It's why he's the greatest tight end in NFL history. This does not surprise me at all.
This is where you got to know your learning style. Sometimes film can trip people up. I'm watching all this stuff and it doesn't necessarily translate. He's probably one of the few people who is talented enough to get out on the floor, make the reads, and talk to my team. I'm good.
Yeah, I actually did some research on this, and it is mostly true, but he was leaning into the character of Gronk, having a little fun, keeping it loose in this conversation. It wasn't quite loose enough, though, because I can report that he had a line in waiting for the Manning brothers, and the tone and the time just wasn't there. But he said, "Hey, I heard you guys talking about bugging the locker rooms. It's true. In fact, your little thing was so small and white that Bill Belichick tried to sign it."
All right, wait. So,
Unfortunately, he did not get the line in because he didn't think the tone was right.
this is reporting? I don't understand. I mean, you have a source close
I got
to Gronk?
sources.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
all the points.
Hello. Who got sent on the Gronk cruise for a work assignment?
All right. So wait. So he had a joke lined up for that, but the whole bugging of the room. That's one of
Yes,
these things that you
retaliation.
say, and when you get called on, you say, "Well, that's just a joke." But you believe there's any truth there when the Mannings are saying it, Sarah?
No, I don't think so. I think they're playing along with all the stereotypes about New England and everything
And
else.
Tim Kalishaw, I'll bring you in here.
I think they were having fun. I think Gronk, as Sarah said, is leaning into that character. But I will say this, against Dallas, he wasn't open on any of his catches. He just goes up and gets the ball anyway. So how much film study do you really need to do to go out there, run your route, and overpower everybody?
How much film study you do after a typical around the horn, Kalishaw? Do you drill down on maybe some of the errand
Very
statements
little
you make?
on today's
Yes, it's
show.
very clear.
Very little.
It's very clear. It's an occupational hazard, some might say. We'll move on. One more thing here. Official statement from the Chicago Bears. Andy Dalton is the team's starting quarterback when healthy. So that was what came out from the PR team after Matt Nagy's media availability yesterday. But today, we have a report on the health of Andy Dalton. Tom Pelissero reporting Dalton is considered week to week with his injury. So that may put Fields in line to start on Sunday, even though he's not clearly QB1, because this is what the Bears keep on telling us. Sarah, I need to bring you in here. What was that yesterday with the media availability, and how did it go over? And does any of it come from Fields being just okay in his second appearance?
No, I think that they're really excited about his potential, but they don't think he's quite ready, and that was clear in the game. And it was some of the stuff that Nagy had pointed to late in the preseason when he was getting dogged for not naming him starter was he still needs to work on his snap count. There's just logistical things about being in the league that he needs to work on and get sharper on. We think Andy Dalton gives us a better shot to win. Nobody believes that because nobody wants to think that this team has to go with Andy Dalton. They want Fields out there right away. I believe that. I just think their communication has been terrible, and this was the latest example. Nobody can explain to me why Matt Nagy would say, "I can't answer that question," and then they would send someone back in with the official statement. Nobody can explain it except to say, stop being so afraid of what everybody's asking you to do and say, "I'm the head coach. I make the decisions. This is what I think is best for the team. I'll let you know when I know about Andy's injury, whether I think Justin Fields is a better option. And until then, I don't owe you anything." And then walk out with that and don't send someone back in to clean up your garbage for you.
So what you're saying is the Bears communicate in a suboptimal way, is what you're saying.
Yes, that sums it up.
Speaking of, Tim Kalishaw, please join us.
And we're out of time. Sorry, come back tomorrow. Let me say this. The news that Andy Dalton is week to week doesn't give us much. That's my status on this show. I think they're a little worried, though, about throwing Fields in against Cleveland. I don't think they think he's fully ready to take it on, but that's where they are.
Clint Yates?
Last week when I sat up here and told y'all that the Bears do not have a plan, y'all looked at me like I had three heads, like, oh, but they said Dalton was the starter. They still don't have a plan, as evidenced by how ridiculous they're running their operation. Nagy is scared to put Fields out there because he doesn't know how to use him and will get exposed as a fraud. That's what the idea is. So he'd rather split the difference on the injuries or the performance being what gives him plausible deniability or either option happening. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's clear. I told y'all that last week. It ain't no different.
Sarah shaking her head. No, you're going to get back in on that first, Monica.
I just want to take a line from Tim Calishaw. Yates, I am not a part of y'all. Don't lump us all in together because I wasn't on that show when you went off.
What do you believe is the truth here with the Bears, Monica? That Andy Dalton's QB1, that Fields might start this week because of Dalton's injury, but they'll go back to Andy Dalton, Monica?
It feels eerily similar to an experience I've had with the Washington football team of the old regime, I should point out, where maybe there's someone else pulling the strings or has some input. I mean, if you're the head coach, you're supposed to be the shield and represent all of your guys. Even if you don't know what's going on in the locker room, to Clinton's point, you got to be able to step to a podium and at least have a firm front-facing option and opinion that you can say with confidence for the sake of the rest of your locker room.
All right, Sarah, you can go back at Yates here and some
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Nah, I mean, listen, you won't get an argument from me that the Bears have completely botched the handling of this communication-wise. The thing that we shook our heads at was you claiming that they had said something that they never did. They said from the beginning.
What happened
Andy
on
Dalton's
Wednesday of
QB1.
that week?
They never
The offensive
changed
coordinator
that.
said...
I don't even know what we're
The
yelling
offensive
about.
coordinator didn't say anything different. They
You
said
guys
the same
know
thing
what
all
you're yelling
along.
about
People
here.
are just mad about
I mean,
it.
honestly.
He said Fields was
I
ready to
100%
play,
know.
mixing the message himself from within the organization. The problem from the jump that has not been solved, same as the problem on the field, which is nobody knows how to use the quarterback.
Nobody disagreed with that. Nobody disagreed with that point. We all agree.
I think we all agree that you guys don't even know what you're talking about. And why
No, I
you're disagreeing.
100% know what
You're
I'm talking
agreeing
about.
to
The
disagree
Bears
to
have some
don't
agree.
know what they're talking about.
All right. Hey, Tim Calishaw, can I give you an opportunity here maybe to send us to break since it seems to be something you're so fond of in your own game.
More Sarah Spain up next. Stick around. She's got more opinions on things. The rest of us will try to jump in if we get a chance. That's next
Give him
on
a
Around
job. I like that. That sounds good.
11 taunting penalties called in the NFL over the first 2 weeks of the season. There are cans, there are worms, there are cans of worms, and then there's a can of worms that has a can of worms inside the initial can. And that's what we're dealing with here. Pete Carroll says it's a can of worms. And now I ask you, Clinton Yates, is the onus on players to tamp down, or is it on the league to bail on this emphasis they put on the call this year?
I think it's on the league. The long answer here is that there's the controlling of black bodies that's really awkward. But the short answer here is this is embarrassing when you're watching a football game. I feel bad for these officials who got to get out there and explain this nonsense because these rules are so absurd because a grown man yelled at another guy's face. Come on, y'all. It's the National Football League. What are we even tuning in for if we can't watch these guys jaw at each other?
Tim Calishaw.
Unfortunately, it's on the players. I don't see the league changing. You saw the receiver looking around for a flag as soon as Reed, flexed a little bit, and it's something teams are going to really have to practice on. Like when you celebrate after a play, turn your body away from the player. It's nonsense, but they're going to have to do it.
Sarah Spain.
It is nonsense, which is why, the players for a little while are going to need to be extra vigilant about where they clap or spin or jump. But also, we've seen a lot of emphasized rules trickle out after the beginning of a season to the point where we say, what was it that we said at the beginning of the year they were going to focus on? So this is one that the league can do that with, and they absolutely should. No need to announce it. Just stop calling it so much.
Monica.
There have been 11 taunting calls so far this season. That is all the total for 2020. This thing is out of control. John Mayer, I hope you're proud of yourself. This is awful.
Clinton, when you talked about the exact what officials doing and where they're looking at, it was totally the Key and Peele sketch, which just holds up. How many pumps do you do? It just holds up. NBA season 29 days away. Preseason starts in 12 days. Reporting to camp is just days away, and the Sixers reportedly intent on convincing Ben Simmons to report. That was Mark Stein's report. Meanwhile, Ben Simmons reportedly intent on not reporting and never playing another game for the team. That's Woj's report. Tim, what are you reading into this?
I hate to come out in favor of players sitting out. It's the only leverage he has is to not show up. Once he shows up, then Philly can do whatever they want. They don't have to do anything. If it's not there, it's on the Sixers to make the move. I don't know why Simmons for Porzingis hasn't happened. It's a natural trade.
Yo, look at Tim Calishaw here.
Both teams. But regardless, I think he will sit it. I think it's his only choice.
Simmons for Porzingis. We put that in the trade machine.
It's a beautiful trade.
And I think both teams wind up losing more games afterwards. Sarah Spain, how about you?
Both teams were relegated.
I actually would normally say that about leverage, but what we know is that both of these people want out and they haven't been able to make it work because of his value right now. So getting back into camp and then looking like a good soldier, maybe even playing a few games and looking like he can do what he needs to do, might be better leverage for them to find a trade partner and actually get him out of there. The problem is he can't really be fined meaningfully until November 15th, and we know that Daryl Morey is fine with things being awkward, waiting out, say, the Damian Lillard situation. So this could go on for quite some time.
Monica, what are you hearing?
Of course, the most recent comparison will be to what James Harden did with the Rockets. However, even James said himself, in hindsight, he wished he had handled some things differently. And one thing is super clear. Ben Simmons does not have the type of cachet that Harden had. This only adds to him being more of a difficult person and camp to deal with. He needs to get to camp.
And Clinton Yates, you see it that way, that Simmons needs to report even though his intention is not to?
I think it's the best way for him to try to get back in anybody's good graces across the league, but this has been a bummer for both because the bottom line is I think that the best option the Sixers had was to keep him and make sure he learned how to play the way they wanted him to. Alas, if he's not going to be there, their chances at the title are gone as far as I'm concerned. I don't care who they trade. They got too many things going on in that front office and on that squad. I don't think that this is an elite team in the East anymore. It's a direct result of how they've chosen to handle the Ben Simmons circle.
Yep. There was a banned word in there, though. It was a very strong argument for Yates. Monica, real quick. Buy or sell Calishaw's trade machine here. Porzingis for Simmons. No, absolutely not. No?
So, absolutely not. I get it, Simmons as a defender potentially, but what are we doing offensively that doesn't help space the floor? And even if you add Simmons as a defender, it doesn't automatically make the other four guys better defenders. No.
Sarah Spain, buy or sell Kalishaw?
I'm selling it. I don't like the
general.
Porzingis and Embiid combo. I think they're going to lose more games without.
Clinton Yates, buy or sell Kalishaw?
Please. It's a shooter.
I'll buy it only because the money matches
do
up.
buy it.
And like I said, I don't think either one of these teams is going anywhere.
All right. Ooh, that horn came in quick, and I know what we're talking about next. It's going to be a preview for some great matchups like Dallas versus Chicago, Wings Sky. Kalishaw, you're not going to be here for that conversation. Anything you'd like to throw Sarah Spain's way?
I'll talk about the Wings' victory over the Sky and Wings marching on past Chicago. They've already beat them 2 out of 3 times.
Sure.
They'll beat them again.
That'll be the last word from him. Clinton Yates, we'll see you as well.
So sorry we didn't get to hear about that.
Spain McNutt showdown, 2 minutes. Start Thursday. You've already heard from Kalishaw, his bold prediction. Dallas over Chicago. We got the Wings Sky and Liberty Mercury to start it off. Sarah Spain, I'll allow you to respond to Mr. Kalishaw and what to watch for in round 1 of the WNBA playoffs.
Yeah, I do not agree with him on the upset. There are 4 different Chicago players who have more combined playoff minutes than the Wings team combined. But Arike Ogunbowale can go off. So I do think they need to show up. Candace Parker needs to lead the way there for them to not suffer that upset.
And Monica McNutt.
Candace Parker has said candidly that sometimes her team gets a little bit lucky. I do trust that they're going to show up and that she's been the missing piece. On the other side, the Mercury and the Liberty, I'm looking forward to Diana Taurasi in her last pursuit. Not to mention the added.
Is she healthy, though? Is she going to play? Is she fully where she needs to be, Monica?
She's going to do her best and take advantage. Well, listen, between her
She's going to do her best. I would hope she does her best.
and Brittany Griner, I think they're poised to go on a run.
Yes. Point Sarah Spain, though. Showdown 2. Cameras captured Kenny Golladay in a moment of frustration or fire on the Giants sideline in their loss Thursday. People assumed it was Daniel Jones he was upset with. But just off screen, there's also Offensive coordinator Jason Garrett. Galladay says it was Garrett he was talking to. Although it looked like the equipment manager was the one getting it all. That video right there. Well, Monica, let me ask you this. Does his explanation make it better or worse that he was yelling at his coach, not his quarterback?
The explanation makes it better in that I'm going to bat for my quarterback who's already under a bunch of pressure. I don't personally believe the explanation, but at least he's trying to help out
Sarah?
there.
Yeah, it absolutely made it better because it is much more salacious to be yelling at your disappointing new quarterback than a guy who's a coach who's been taking this publicly for years. Everyone's used to people yelling at Garrett.
Galladay was a free agent. He chose the Giants. I think that needs to be said. And the equipment manager was he was the one wearing all that.
Blame it on Mike Glennon. Glennon's
Sarah
Yeah,
Spain,
blame
30
it out.
seconds apiece.
Oh, thank you. So I was watching the Dancing with the Stars premiere last night. There were some really exciting moments, including Amon Shumpert looking like a stretched out